when the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
To the best soccer show, the best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go! It's the best soccer show. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois. We are live and with you on a Thursday night. We are back live and with you on a Thursday night to talk about the beautiful game of soccer.
Somebody's been on tour.
In the beautiful country of America.
You've been
I've been on tour. Yeah, I've been. I guess I toured the island of Puerto Rico a little bit. I guess you could say that. I did. I was at my in-laws' house for quite a bit of time, and then we took a couple little side trips. We went to my wife and I got an Airbnb on the opposite side of the island for a little while. Let Grandma and Grandpa watch the kid.
Oh,
had a
so
little,
on the bonus show,
Yeah.
you and I both have something we need to talk about then, because I
Okay.
had a version of that last week.
Yeah.
Where my mom took the kids for 4 days, and so it was like empty nest. It was empty nest syndrome for about 4 days.
4 days? I can't even imagine.
I think I had 3 date nights in 4 days, and it was amazing.
Wow. I also almost died in Puerto Rico.
What?
If I tell you that I almost died in Puerto Rico, I'll give you three. I'll give you 3 guesses why. Okay, so that's your first guess. Gila monster.
Yeah.
Gila monster. I don't
Yeah.
even think Puerto Rico has Gila monsters. So that's a big fat no. Do I have my buzzer?
Hurricane.
I don't even have my buzzer. I just only have the ding. Man, that sucks. The ding not working. Oh, I know where it is. Here's the ding. But I don't have my buzzer. Hurricane.
So it's not Gila monster, it's not a hurricane.
Did you hear about the hurricane?
I don't know what happens on the East Coast. I
of
don't know what happens on the East Coast.
The world? You don't know what's happening in the world? Do you know what happened in Hawaii?
I didn't know until the next day.
Okay. Well, let's
And
pray
that's
for
only
Hawaii.
because my wife's
I know
aunt
you
has
won't pray,
property
but
right there.
Let's not. I know you don't pray, but we're thinking about Hawaii. Let's say that first of all. We know some people. We've had some besties who have lived and been from Hawaii. So
my third guess as to how you died in Puerto Rico: dysentery.
Why? Dysentery? I don't even know.
Back in the day, people died of that all the time. I played Oregon Trail.
Are you thinking of? Oh yeah, I guess that is one of the diseases. What's the one where you get on? What do you get on boats? Rickets?
Oh,
no, it's not rickets.
No. It's scurvy.
Scurvy. No, it wasn't a Gila monster. It wasn't a hurricane, which didn't exist, and it wasn't whatever you said.
Hurricanes exist.
Dysentery. There were no hurricanes in the Atlantic at the time I was in Puerto Rico. Okay.
Okay.
And honestly, I feel like you should be careful, throwing out hurricanes for an island that has been destroyed at various points in its history. Obviously, we don't. No, I nearly died going down a mountain in Puerto Rico, and I know
you went down on a mountain.
No, there was So in the middle of Puerto Rico, it's a tropical island, a volcanic formation of Earth.
That's usually how those are made. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an island, right? They don't have volcanoes in Puerto Rico, obviously, but they do have mountains in the middle of the island. Kayla's parents are actually from the mountainous region in the middle of the island, and we decided to go on a little trip. Let's go to this restaurant. It's kind of high up the mountains. They got this beautiful, kind of bohemian vibe, and we're gonna eat some Puerto Rican food and stuff. And we get a little lost with the GPS, and then we stopped for directions, and Kayla's brother asked this guy, and we didn't know until after the fact that he was like,
"You got lost with a local in the car?"
Puerto Rico is a big island. You can't know all of it, and we're talking about mountain roads. I know you go up to Big Bear and stuff. You know what mountain roads are like. Are they straight?
4x4. I make my own roads.
Are they straight? Are those mountain roads straight? Do they? Can you be sure where you're headed at all points? No. So the guy says, apparently, here's a shortcut, but I wouldn't recommend it. Kayla's brother's like, whatever. I'm driving, because whenever I'm in Puerto Rico, I drive, and I'm telling you, we were going like this down this mountain, and it's wet. Everything's wet in Puerto Rico. It's still 90 degrees in the mountains.
Okay, I wait for the part where you almost died. I think there might be a little bit of hyperbole here. I was scared.
What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say? Well, yeah, I was scared. Okay, almost died. You're right. Maybe I was. Maybe that is hyperbole. Maybe I'm playing it up. I just want you to appreciate that I'm back. That's all. I want you to love the fact that I'm here to talk. I mean, it's not the best circumstances under which to talk about American soccer, because I'm a little upset with the U.S. Women's National Team, Jerry. I'm a little upset with them. Here's why.
I think we're going to different sides of this then.
Let me lay this out. Look, am I surprised by what happened? No, I'm not surprised by what happened. And I'm not even blaming, like, I know Vlatko's getting a lot of heat right now. And look, coaches get heat when their teams don't reach expectations. I think that's fine. And he shouldn't be the head coach anymore of the U.S. women's national team. It's not really about that. It's more about the fact that, our swagger came from the women. Like, they gave us our American soccer swagger, Jared. Our U.S. men's national team, what do we hold on to? A quarterfinal appearance in 2002?
Yeah, but I'll also say that the women have given us a false sense of security as well that was exposed this World Cup.
I don't think that's what it was. What do you false sense
I think
of
being
security?
mad about this performance is like being mad my kid can't dunk. Like, he is just not capable of doing that right now.
All right.
This team was not capable of winning a championship.
Sure, but that
I think a lot of people totally had their heads in the sand and really weren't acknowledging what this team actually was going into it.
Well, maybe, but I do think that that's a hard thing for a fan to do and for media to do, right? Because there is a story. The U.S. women win World Cups, or they're very, very good, or the best in the world in the women's game. And again, for a country that suffers from an inferiority complex when it comes to the sport, they were our solace. Like, they were our warm blanket. Like, we can at least say we've got the best women's team in the world. And I don't think that I don't think it's easy to suddenly go, well, you know what? This team, this circumstance, these injuries, this coach, the world. I don't think like reality really is like a powerful force when you're a fan, because that's what it is. You're a fanatic. You believe until proven otherwise, right? And I think there were people who were saying there might be problems, but I think it was okay to believe.
And I don't want to say that the U.S. doesn't have the best team in the world. They might. That team wasn't there, though.
No, that team wasn't there.
And I think that's where maybe I feel a little bit different than a lot of other people, is that I'm a realist about what we sent. And it's not necessarily on Vlatko. I don't know that Vlatko could have done much better. Maybe he could have brought a couple of the veterans that are talismanic, and he chose to instead. He definitely clung. And I think there's game management decisions that you can definitely hang on Vlatko over the course of this tournament. But in terms of being realistic about this team, I think the team maybe could have gone one more round. Maybe. I don't think this was a finalist or even a championship caliber team.
No. I agree with you. I agree with you. Look, obviously, in retrospect, it's easy to say that, and I do think that going into the tournament, we definitely saw some problems. And you're right. Maybe we should have known. But again, that's not how fandom works, and that's not how it works when you are back-to-back World Cup champions, right? Yeah. When you carry that swag, and this is another thing I want to address. Now, I'm kidding about being angry at the U.S. women's national team, but it is humbling, right? It does suck that we've lost that one thing we could hold on to about being the world's best in the women's game as a country, as a soccer nation, as we still try to figure it out. The other thing is, like, the women's game and the U.S. women's national team, its place within it, is now, it's not the same as the men, because our men's team is still a long way from winning a World Cup, and I think that's okay to say. But for the most part, it's a very similar experience now. You go into every World Cup worried, not sure, wondering about your fallibility in certain areas, wondering about injuries, knowing that luck, and it has been true for the U.S. women that luck has played a factor. It was bad luck maybe in 2007 or bad luck in 2011.
The 6-second call against Canada for the goalkeeper.
That was against Canada. That was good luck.
Yeah,
I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, when they haven't won the World Cup, luck was kind of against them in some cases. But they still finished third, right? They still were a finalist in 2011, and they got beat. I'm saying that now we are dependent on luck in a way that we're not accustomed to being dependent on luck. And it's got to be like this lining up of factors. It's got to be that you don't have significant injuries going into the tournament. It's got to be that you have a coach that actually has a tactical plan. And I know there's a lot of debate about whether the U.S. has been passed by because the women's game has gotten so much more tactical in the last couple years. I think
there are a couple of things that are working against the U.S. But obviously, like I said, I still think that this women's team is capable of winning the World Cup, even this year, had they had their full complement of players. I think that was possible. I don't think it was necessarily likely.
But this is my point. That's never going to be the case ever again. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to be the case that you have your 100% best team at the World Cup. And we used to win World Cups without our 100% best team. We would have some injuries, or we'd have a player missing.
The rest of the world has come up to a level where when you get to your bench, you may not have the same depth to compete with starters of other teams. I think the level of complexity in other teams is one. But I also think if you look at other teams that are out as well, Germany, Brazil, these teams are out early, and these teams are the classically like big teams of women's soccer. And you're seeing these other teams coming up that they're raising the bar. But in terms of the U.S., I still think the U.S. is the Brazil of the women's game in that just because when's the last time Brazil won a World Cup?
2002.
It's been a long time, but is anyone going to argue they're still not maybe the top one or two best teams of all time, the countries of all time in the sport?
They develop players, right? That's the thing. They develop a mass amount of players.
Yeah.
Sometimes those players are good enough to be world class. The combination when you get to the timing of a World Cup every 4 years, right? You're trying to thread a needle. It's incredibly hard, right? The analogy for like being at your best. And I think the teams that win World Cups are, again, they're lucky in some cases. They're good and lucky, right? They're good and lucky. And it used to be that maybe the U.S. women's national team's luck factor didn't have to be as high. And now I think that's a bigger share of whether or not we win another World Cup. And that's true for Brazil, too, right? We watched it, right? Neymar gets hurt at the wrong time in the first game, right? And then that throws everything out of whack. Or, they lean a little too much into a 35-year-old and don't have a replacement. Like those things are where we're at, too.
Yeah,
right? That's where we're at.
I've been talking about this with you on this show for quite some time. I think the U.S. is also getting exposed for... This is what I was worried about when the Nations League and these other things started becoming a bigger part of world soccer culture. U.S. isn't getting the same caliber of friendlies and games as the European countries are. They're not. How many times have they played Mexico in the last 18 months?
I don't know.
It's a lot.
I don't know.
I don't. It's a lot, though. Every time I see them, they seem to be playing Mexico or Canada or like something like that. And they're not getting the high-profile games regularly against teams that actually push them.
Okay.
So I think that their record is somewhat inflated when you talk about Vlatko's record and what this team's record was going into the World Cup.
It's possible, right? I think this is a combination of factors. And obviously the difficult thing here as we kind of reckon with this and being humbled by going out ahead of the stage we usually get to, even if we don't win the World Cup. We're a semifinalist every single time. This is the first time the U.S. women have not made the semifinal of a Women's World Cup. As we reckon with this, trying to figure out what should get the more of the blame and then what to address, right? Now, there are some areas that are independent of one another. Like we should be addressing youth development on the girls' side of the game, sort of independent of anything else. Who the head coach is of our national team or in certain other elements, right? You can do two things at once. I'm not suggesting you can't. But there are lots of things to kind of pick at. And Vlatko and his decision-making is one of them. And I kind of want to ask you, after seeing their performances and, all right, not very convincing against Vietnam. Don't score against or score against the Dutch and obviously can't find the winner, right? And got better in the second half when Roosevelt came on, right?
For sure.
And Roosevelt's status was a part of this whole story, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, third match against Portugal, needing a goal, although it wouldn't have ended up mattering because they didn't get enough goals against Vietnam in the first game, right?
Yeah, Netherlands
but
kind of should have done against
needing
Vietnam.
to build some confidence and not being able to get past Portugal, who they had never, ever done anything but beaten in their history in 10 games, right? And then the round of 16 game where Roosevelt's not available and Vlatko goes to a different setup and they play better and all. Do you put it on individual things like too much reliance on Alex Morgan, who wasn't good enough in the turn? I think that's fair to say, but would they have won more games or scored more goals or been much better if he had started Trinity Rodman, Lynn Williams, and Sophia Smith instead of Alex Morgan through the middle?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's hard to say. I don't think necessarily. Maybe, okay, but I think the bigger issue as I watched the U.S. over these 4 games was the complete willingness to bypass midfield. Complete willingness to bypass. And it worked back in the day. Because, and the U.S. has always been a team that's fairly bypassed midfield. Long balls have always been a part of the U.S. game. You've had Ali Dalkemper in the past who had an amazing ability to service the ball long. You had Abby Wambach up front for years, which was a freak up top in terms of like playing back to goal and being able to just pound on the defenses. And I think the U.S. tried to play a version of the game that doesn't suit this game anymore. I think the rest of these teams are moving to different formations, moving with different tactics. Portugal, Netherlands, and Sweden all won the midfield against the U.S. Every one of them won the midfield against the
absolutely.
U.S.
Yeah, the game has moved in a more midfield direction, and the U.S. women's national team has not.
But they also don't have the players to do it. Sam Buis isn't there. Roosevelt is hurt,
Right. If you had again, perfect world, it didn't happen. I'm not trying to say they would have won the World Cup, but if it was, and I'm going to put Buis aside because she's been hurt for so long, there was never any chance of that. But if Roosevelt was 100% fit, if Julie Ertz wasn't needed at center back,
Sauerbrunn was okay. Yeah, that's
sure.
right.
If Sauerbrunn was okay, Julie Ertz can play midfield.
I think it's a different team.
And Lindsey Horan is on the field. How much better are they? Significantly better?
I think they're better. I think they're significantly better. I really do, because I think Horan has to do way less of worrying about the defensive side of the ball. I think that Rose Lavelle she commands a presence, and I think right now I think midfield teams are able to stack the box against Lindsey Horan in the midfield. You weren't worried about Fox and Sullivan basically beating you in midfield, and Rose Lavelle demands attention, which gives space for Horan. And Julie Ertz's ability to cover defensive space gives both of them more freedom to be more advanced in the midfield. There's just a lot of I think there's a domino effect that happened with Becky Sauerbrunn being out, and Julie Ertz played fantastic in defense. And Naomi Grima is the best player of the tournament for the U.S. I think everyone who watched these games knows that. This team let in 1 goal in 4 games. Is that what it was? 1 goal?
Yes. Yes,
One
it
goal
was
in
1
4
goal in
games.
4 games.
Defensively, there wasn't a problem, other than the fact
No.
that Crystal Dunn was being asked to do way too much creatively on that left-hand side.
So again, I've given you a scenario in which the U.S. is a different trio not a different trio of attackers, but swapping Alex Morgan out for Lynn Williams and then playing Sophia Smith through the middle, which people are arguing is a better place for her. She's more comfortable. Sure. I think that's fair, right? I do think that you put a player like Sophia Smith on the wing, and you don't have a winger, and you don't even have a wide player who can beat defenders 1v1, right? That's not her game, right? She wants to play central. She wants to be.
Well, there is no Tobin Heath on this team now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But that's my point, right? And Lynn Williams is more of a winger, right? She absolutely is. But and maybe that gives you a different kind of balance, a different kind of look, right? That's what I'm talking about. Trinity Rodman, again, these are wide forwards. They're not wingers, right? So, and then where's your width coming from? Are you getting it from your fullbacks?
So if you're going to bypass the midfield with long balls, how are you using your wingers the right way? You need combination play to get that verticality that Berhalter always talks about.
Playing into cul-de-sacs, right? Playing into even if you bypass midfield, or if you cut out lines, even if you get the ball into Smith or Rodman or whatever, they're dribbling into cul-de-sacs. They don't have ideas. There's not a pattern here set up. It's you beat your defender or nothing happens, right? And there were moments. Right, there were moments there where the U.S. had a chance. I think again a sharper Alex Morgan, and I don't know if it's past her. Like I know that certain big media figures have been taking a bat to Alex Morgan about her play, like suggesting she's not a star. I don't know.
Alex,
is that where we want to go?
Morgan is a fox in the box. If you're not putting the service in there, there's no balls dropping down the 6. Like she's the person that needs to find the ball 12 yards from goal. That's who she is. She needs to find the ball 12 yards from goal.
You've got to get players to the end line to cut the ball back to her, or find her head 6 yards from goal. Like that's got to happen. If you're not doing that, you're wasting
and
it.
I think all these different combinations we're talking about, like put this person here or try this here and there. That's where I feel like there's some blame for Vlatko. I don't know necessarily all those things. Are you you're going to throw like big, huge changes in for your starting World Cup lineup at the World Cup level, but his lack of willingness to change things in the game to adjust for things that are going on. Outside of putting Rose Lavelle in one time and one starting of a change in the last game, there wasn't enough dynamic coaching or decision making.
The fact that he locked in, and the fact that Alex Morgan played all but the last half hour of the tournament, she played and played and played and played and played.
You're never going to give Alyssa Thompson an opportunity to change the game?
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with not giving Alyssa Thompson a ton of minutes as an 18-year-old, but I do have a problem with not having a plan B when it's clearly not working with Alex Morgan, or you need to just give the defense something else to worry about, right? And so beyond the combination that we proposed could have played more, there is an obvious question here. Does Vlatko get let off the hook on some level in terms of the attack? Because as you said, Jared, they had a bunch of injuries. We were talking about Catarina Macario being the star of this team going into this tournament, and obviously it didn't happen. It's unfortunate.
Swanson was the star of this team.
And Mal Swanson was playing like the player who was going to dominate this tournament, and she didn't get to play. She didn't get to play. And I don't know, like how can you account for that?
He absolutely gets somewhat of a pass, but I don't think enough that's going to save his job or think that he should still be in
I'm not
charge
suggesting
of the team
that.
or anything
No,
like that.
I'm not suggesting
I think he was hard done. I think some of the decisions he made, like putting Julie Ertz in the defense, was a fine decision. I actually think the move to put Emily Sonnet in midfield was really smart. I thought that would, but they're all like treating a wound. You know, it's like, oh, that was smart to tourniquet your arm when you're bleeding out. Like, yeah, good job. I guess that's part of it. But like, how come your arm is bleeding out?
Man, I like that.
Damn, dog, that's in a pro.
I do like that. Now, I wanted to put a number on this. Okay, look, the U.S. women are out of the World Cup, right? They're not winning this World Cup. They're not going 3 in a row. They're not winning their 5th World Cup title. We're kind of trying to put them in the context. They're still good enough to be an elite group of nations that are capable of winning tournaments. The Olympics is 11 months away, Jerry. We're like basically at the Olympics already. This does create some,
I think they
some
could be
pressure.
better.
It creates some pressure for the Fed to go find somebody to replace Vlatko, because again, I don't think his position is tenable no matter what. So you tell me where you are DEFCON wise on the program and the outlook for the Olympics in 2024, and then moving on to a World Cup in 2027.
I would say right around a DEFCON 3. I don't think it's urgent. I don't think it's urgent because
DEFCON 3.
Because I think many of the things that we're missing can be ready by next summer. You know, a lot of the injuries are. You're going to get another year of Sophia Smith, Trinity Rodman, Alyssa Thompson, all maturing for another year, taking bigger roles with their clubs. You're going to have. You do have to answer your center back question is going to be: is Becky Sauerbrunn still your center back for next year?
She can't be. Well, after the injury, at her age, I mean, look, you give her a shot. You do give her a shot. By the way, Connor says DEFCON 4. I don't have a DEFCON 4 drop, Connor, so I can't play a 4. But all right, I get your point. What I was going to say is that you have this program. You have these players. There's one player. You talk about Trinity Rodman getting a bigger role, having more of a starring position with her club team. Every player but one plays their soccer in the NWSL.
Yeah.
Do you see this performance as an indictment of the NWSL? Because I've heard that argument plenty over the last couple of days on my radio show, which I think you know about. You know my radio show? Yeah.
Oh, you do? You're doing that again.
WNBC. WNBC.
They still pay me. They still pay me to do the radio
Shocking.
show.
I would say, I don't know if it's an indictment on the NWSL in terms of, I'll say a little bit, because I think the talent and pressure that, I don't think NWSL has the same talent and creates the same pressure week in, week out as the European leagues do.
I don't buy that. No. I think that's completely wrong.
You think that there's more pressure winning the NWSL than there is playing in the Champions League for women?
Okay, I guess we're talking about different kinds of pressure. I think that Barcelona gets a lot of weeks off. Okay, they win Champions League and they dominate La Liga, but they get a lot. The women's version of La Liga, but they get a lot of weeks off. I don't think NWSL players get weeks off because it's a competitive league, right? But that doesn't mean it's a better league for making international players. If you
look around the World Cup, I think it does. Look at the other teams and other players that are doing well. How many of them are playing NWSL?
No,
some of the CONCACAF teams are.
Yeah, no. This is what you're saying.
Or
you're
the
saying
ones that are NWSL are also older players sometimes as well.
I'm saying that the NWSL has some features that make it a very good league to watch and maybe a league to follow.
That. Sure,
but maybe not. Is it the best league?
Is it creating? Is it creating the best players?
And I don't. This is the other thing. It can't be binary, right? I don't think the answer is everybody's got to go to Europe because they're better. That makes better players. I don't think that's true in the women's game yet, right? I think Lindsey Horan plays for a team with ambition and expectations, and that's good. I think there are clubs in the WSL where players could go and feature and be fine and be happy and be comfortable and still grow as players. But I think there are a lot. I don't think there's a lot of places in Europe where you're going to be playing so high a level of soccer, plus getting sort of the tactical education.
Why is the average American woman not playing in Europe and they're playing NWSL as well?
I think a lot of them are comfortable in NWSL. I think they like being stars, right? I think that's natural. I think they obviously the contract originally requiring them to play in the NWSL kind of set a tone. When that came up, when that ended, you saw a bunch of players go abroad and check things and
For like
try
a
to
year?
figure things out.
For like a year?
Look, I saw an argument, and this, I don't know, trying to drill down on whether this is true or not is difficult, even more difficult than the subjectivity is built into the men's game. But I saw somebody argue that, hey, there's a reason Rose Lavelle didn't play much at City. It's because she's not tactically sound, because she doesn't understand the game at a high
funny.
enough
That's
level.
something I was going to get to, is that I feel that the U.S. women are greater than the sum of its parts. And I think what I mean by that is U.S. has always been well-coached, well-conditioned, well-planned, leaders. There's always been great leaders in the U.S. women's program, and they've always had a really good mindset of who they are and how to play together. I don't necessarily know that they've always had the best players, and I think that's being exposed right now as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of Americans in Europe, because I think they are better as a team together than they potentially are as an individual piece in a European team.
Okay, I suppose that's possible, right? I don't know that I see it that way exactly. I maybe see it more as there are some players who on a scale of 1 to 10 are 10s, and there are a couple of those sprinkled across European nations, right? There you can name a couple of them. Spain has a couple or one. The Dutch are going to have one. The French are going to have one, maybe two, depending on how you look at it. Germany's going to have one, right? And Brazil is going to have one or two, depending on how. The U.S. maybe doesn't have any players who are 10, or maybe they do have one, but then they have a lot of players that are in the 5 to 6 to 7 range, whereas those other countries have a player who's at a 1 out of 10 on a 1 to 10, but they got a lot of 3s and 4s.
I want to put this in there from Placata in the chat. It says Japan has domestic players and a couple NWSL, but I think Japan is very much similar to the U.S. teams of the past. Japan has an identity. They know who they are as a team. They play an amazing team game. Mm-hmm. I don't know that when you look at Japan, you say that maybe outside of 2 or 3, that they're necessarily more talented than when you look at Spain or somewhere like that, And I don't know that player to player, they are necessarily better than many of the teams that are out there, but that team knows how to play together.
Well, and this is the thing about the women's game. There's still a lot of sort of like, and it's true in the men's game to some level, but we kind of know who the best teams are going into the tournament. I mean, even if there might be a sub. Well, I'm talking about the men's, right?
Oh,
so in the men's game, there might be a surprise here or there, but like Argentina winning a World Cup is not necessarily a shock, right? It's like, okay, Argentina won. They finally put it together. We thought they might be able to do that. Sure, I'm not saying there aren't surprises, but my point is that Japan was kind of not anybody's pick coming in. They had a couple of down cycles, a couple of down years. Obviously, they won a World Cup in 2011, and I don't think people thought of them as in that elite, right? But here they come, proving that they weren't ever really gone, right? They maybe had a fallow period, but they weren't ever really gone. And I don't know if this says anything about the women's game more than just, as you said, Japan had a plan, put it together, smart coaching, playing as a team, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess, look, again, I don't know that it has to be binary. But the question is, do we not have the players to adapt or to change or to be more progressive in how we play, right? Because one of the things we're identifying as a problem is the way the U.S. plays, which is a lot of kind of kick and rush. It's not route one, but it is kick and rush, right? Do we not have the technical ability and the tactical savvy in our player pool right now to execute a change, whoever the next head coach is?
That's a hard one. That's a really hard one, because you don't know how much of what we saw at the World Cup was dictated by the lack of the loss of talent that happened ahead of the World Cup versus Vlatko's inability to be malleable in his ideas and tactics. I think you saw him clinging a lot to the past in this tournament, both in personnel and the way they played. So it's hard. You don't know what this team's really capable of. And if anything, I'm optimistic about the next 11 months going up to the Olympics. I think there's been a changing the guard that we've been putting our toe into for the last 3 years. And finally, we just have to break through the ice and fall into the icy pond and see if we can swim.
This is brutal, and we didn't plan for this, and I do think it matters who's coming up behind them. But if you were looking at this 23-player roster and we played keep or drop for the Olympics next year, would you be able to do it, or would you feel weird about it?
No, I mean, I think I think it's more like who's aging out than keep or
But
drop.
that's what I'm saying.
But
Keep or drop. It's the same, but that's what I mean in terms of the program. And maybe it's the Olympics or maybe it's just a wider picture. Because
the
again,
Olympics is harder. The next World Cup is easy. The Olympics is a little bit harder, but I think you can still say it. I mean, there's definitely a few people probably won't be around next year.
Okay, I'm going to do this real quick, and you don't. It doesn't. If you don't have an opinion, I know. Again, this is kind of hard.
You don't have to do the
based
whole
on this.
23. Just pick some ones you think are the most.
Well,
the best
I'm going to give
candidates
you
for
players
it.
who are actually featured because Casey Murphy and Aubrey Kingsbury. Casey Murphy did play a game, right?
Yeah, Sanchez, I don't think played a minute.
Okay, so listen there. At this point, 35 years old.
Keep.
Okay.
1 year. She still
let's
looks
see.
good.
We barely saw Huerta, if at all. I don't remember if she got on the
A
field.
little bit, I think.
A tiny bit. Gurma, you're keeping her, right?
Oh,
She's one for the
she's-
future.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it time to say goodbye to Kelly O'Hara, who came on and made took a penalty kick and hit it off the post?
This is
for her
this
first
is the
touch.
hardest one out of everyone we're going to talk about because she's that Frankie Hayduck. She's that
Yeah,
she is the heart of the team kind of person, the leader. And you ask yourself, as we say some of these names that are going to age out right now, who's the next generation of leader?
Okay, but I think
Alex,
you can find
Alex
leaders.
Morgan
I think you can find
is a
leaders.
leader like Christian Pulisic is a leader, and I don't get it either one of them. You
Okay.
know, like
Yeah, I don't know that leadership.
So
is
I
why
would
you
say
keep
Kelly
O'Hara.
O'Hara. I think this was probably her last run, even though I
That's
love
it.
her. She's one of my favorite all-time players.
We didn't see Alana Cook. Can't say nothing about Alana Cook in this tournament anyway. Emily Sonnet, we saw her step into midfield.
I think
And
she has
played
one
well.
more. She definitely has an Olympic role in there, and she's getting to that age too, where she's never been a big feature player. She's always been a bit player, a specialist at something, and I think that's going to keep her around for one more season. And she will be one of the few leaders left out.
By the way, all of these players are. Look, I don't want to make decisions for them, right? I'm not trying to do that. They have their own autonomy here. But there's some of these players who are clearly in a different phase of their life than they were 4 years ago or 8 years ago, right? And it's okay for that to be the case. And again, it's not even just because they're women. Like there are men's players who maybe like, I'm not really into this international thing anymore. Or I'll show
Timothy
up
Chandler.
because it's an honor, but do I really want to be here? Crystal Dunn.
Crystal
I
Dunn,
didn't-
she's still got an Olympic center. She wants it.
Maybe, but I didn't see it in this tournament. Did you see it in this tournament? Were the tactics so broken that Crystal Dunn didn't, or she's not a defender and she
I
got
think she
exposed
was
'cause of that.
asked to do a lot of creating in that position over there because there was no creativity anywhere else on the field when Roosevelt wasn't on it, and I think that forced her to overdo things at times.
She got exposed defensively for that reason. is what
For
you're
sure,
saying. Yeah.
for sure. I still
Yeah,
think
even
that
though they
she's-
only gave up one goal in the entire tournament, to point that out, right?
you could
got
probably
one
say
goal.
Crystal Dunn's probably still one of the best offensive players if you played her in offensive position in some of the against some of these
right.
sides. You know,
Emily Fox, 25 years old.
she'll be fine. She'll be fine.
Again, we didn't see Ashley Sanchez. Didn't get an opportunity. We know what she can do in the league, and I think we've seen her with the national team, but not in a World Cup stage. We know Julie Ertz has said it's done for. She's only 31, which is
Here, I'll
young
say
for
about
a
Ertz.
women's player.
Julie Ertz has a role next year in the Olympics if she wants it.
I think
if
she's
she wants
already
it.
said she might be done, but I don't think she's confirmed that
Yeah,
yet.
but you know what? This is how many times did Messi say he was done with his
Okay.
national team?
All
You know,
right.
like
All right.
that heat, that pain that's immediately after World Cup when you care so much, like she does. But when you look at her play, there's nothing to tell you that she couldn't play at center back or potentially in midfield next summer if she wanted to.
Yeah. Let's see. Savannah DeMello.
You know, there were moments where I liked what she was doing. Once again, I can't tell if she's an 8.
Dysfunctional
If she-
midfield makes it hard.
I
right?
can't tell what her position is. Like, I can't tell what her role is. It was kind of like when you watch Weston McKennie sometimes. It's like, what position are you? Like, what are you doing? Are you trying to contribute to the offense? Are you contributing
Yeah.
to the defense? It was a bit lost there. And then once again, I think absolutely she'll still be in there next year, but I don't know what her role is and if she's a starter.
Yeah, I think a healthy Rose is part of the Olympic team for sure, and then from there, Lindsay Horan, who's 29. I mean, I don't think you're pushing her out. I do wonder.
She is the rock of this team right now.
Yeah. I wonder if there's. I mean, again, she wasn't bad, but there were moments where it was not her tournament.
She can't do everything though.
I know,
Like
but
with-
that's the problem, right? If she feels like she has to, then you almost have to take her out to find balance in the midfield. Right?
All I know is the moment the U.S. needed something, she found a way to do it. That was a captain's performance.
Andy Sullivan, again, one of the players they were asking to fill in for Julie Ertz at various points, and was it going to work? Did it work?
When I look at Andy Sullivan, I don't see our future 6, but I don't know what the better option is.
And then Christy Mewis, who didn't really get a chance to
I don't know if she got a
influence this.
minute at all. Did she get a minute?
I don't think she got on the field. The forward group is Lynn Williams, Alyssa Thompson, Sophia Smith, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Trinity Rodman. Megan is already retiring. We know that. We thank her
I think
for
she's the only one that's not going to be a part of this team. There could be a conversation about if Alex Morgan should still continue to be part of this.
It's not that I'm saying you dump Alex Morgan from the team.
I still know she's a starter.
But she shouldn't. I don't know that I don't know that she needs to be the starter. I don't know that things need to be centered on Alex Morgan at this point. I don't want to get into this argument, is she a star or not. I mean, coach's daughter is what Bill Simmons was throwing out there. Like, that's just the coach's daughter who gets to play because everybody likes her and she's related
Like
to
she
the
hasn't had a
coach.
career of scoring goals, but I will say at the World Cup, her goals have been padded by some of these big games where there's been blowouts.
They have. But at the same time, I'm not trying to disrespect her career. As I say, maybe we need to move on.
What
from
I
that
will
as a
say is that I
center-forward
don't know
option.
that her style suits what the U.S. team had at this World Cup to be successful. Now, I just think like she can be part of the program going forward. I think the next coach, we got to see what the coach style
It's
plays going to be for he or she that's coaching next, and whether or not she looks like a compliment.
It's a tweener thing. It's Alex Morgan.
She does the work.
But she's not, as you said, she's not Abby Wambach, right?
No.
So you can't use her as that focal point back to goal.
But you know what? The game is not going towards Abby Wambach's style of play
No,
anymore
it's not.
either.
It's not. But what I'm saying is that you can't. And Alex Morgan is also
I'm
not
more
going
of
to
a
play
game
as
changer,
a false nine. So if you're going to have her and she's going to make 5-yard runs or she's going to find space, as you said, she's a poacher. Service. Where's the service?
It's not there.
Right? It's not there.
I mean,
it
there's no
wasn't-
Kristen Press like taking people on from the wings. You
Well, we
you
talked
don't have a
about it,
Tobin
like-
Heath anymore. Like nutmegging people.
Vlatko's only real answer for anything was to throw Megan Rapinoe on there because he was looking for Megan Rapinoe 5 years ago, right? Or 4 years ago.
Yeah, and I'll say this: there were times where Megan Rapinoe's service you could tell was better. It was not consistent though.
No.
But the few times that it did come in, it's like, okay, I see why Vlatko's putting in there because there's been no service. And she has the ability to do that when she's on her game, which she was not.
Not to name drop the show again, but the United States of Soccer on Sirius XM-FC is where I talk about soccer in America on a daily basis.
How many shows are you gonna pimp
I
on
did
this
an
show?
hour. You should also look out for One Shot on Goal,
Jesus.
or no, One Shot on Frame. That's what I called it.
No,
Not
I mean
One
the
Shot
name
on
of
Goal.
your
I got the
show.
name of the show wrong. One Shot on Frame, which is coming out soon. Interview show. I did an hour with Shannon Box after this. And, she and I
Shannon
kind of got into this conversation, which I think a lot of people miss. It's very easy when you're on the sideline, when you're a fan in the stands or watching on television to make these bold statements about, oh, you should have never brought Megan Rapinoe, should have always given Alyssa Thompson more time or something like that, right? And I get it, for us who don't have to be judged, who aren't going to be judged by the decisions, we only see potential success for a player who does not have a track record but who has obvious talent. Like, it's easy for us to imagine winning and goals and all this
forget that an
beautiful stuff.
18-year-old might not be able to step up to the occasion
That's
of
exactly
a World
right.
Cup.
That's exactly right. And a coach has to figure out, how much do I trust this player in this moment? And obviously the coaches who have gotten that right, we celebrate them. Like, oh my God, he put a 19-year-old on the field and that player dominated. What an amazing decision there was a reason we say that that's an amazing decision, because it's not an easy one to make. It's much easier to go to the 35-year-old or the 37-year-old who has a track record, who you can every time you look down the bench, you see Megan Rapinoe pinging a ball in that goes perfectly to somebody's head and ends up at the back of the goal, right? Or
Jackie D saying Thompson has like 3 professional goals, and that's not wrong or inaccurate, but sometimes you look at a player and you think like, I think Alyssa Thompson could have had the kind of World Cup that Len Donovan Marcus Beasley did in 2002.
Know that. That's the thing. You
There's
might
talent
be right
there, though, man.
You
Sometimes
might be
you
right.
gotta play talent.
But can you really blame Vlatko for being hesitant?
Not starting? No, absolutely not. But as you saw the way these games were going, and you couldn't get a second goal against Netherlands, and you can't get a goal against Portugal, where's the move to get the talent on the field?
Absolutely. The refusal to use the talent he brought, especially in the Netherlands game, that is a fireable offense for me. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Rapinoe or Thompson or Williams or anybody. You didn't bring players that you didn't put on players that you brought who you said you thought were good enough to be
You said
contributors
these
at the World
23
Cup.
players were good enough to play at the World Cup.
Yeah.
And yet you used 15, 16. Like, there's a bunch of players that didn't see hardly a minute.
Yeah. All right, last thing very quickly. I don't know that you have a full dossier ready, Jared, but
I doubt I do.
any
but what do you
thoughts on coach for this team?
I don't.
I've seen some lists. I've seen some lists.
I guess more than anything, I want someone that represents a change. I think the U.S. needs to change fundamentally. If you're going to rip the Band-Aid off and say, hey, we're going to start this new version, I need someone that's going to play a 4-3-3 like the world's game is going to. I want to see a person that wants to play a possession style game because I still think that the talent is there to do it when everyone's healthy.
On an 11-month clock, you want to do that.
I'm not worried about the Olympics. I'm talking about World Cup.
Well,
you're hiring a person for the World Cup, man.
But that's not how this program works. This program has, even with this defeat, even with being knocked out throughout the 16, they still have expectations of going and winning a gold medal next year. So
but you leave Vlatko in for one more year if you want to do that.
I don't think you can justify that.
But you're expecting a guy to get, or you have to hire a Vlatko
By the way,
clone.
we did play a 4-3-3, but Jared's point is that we did not play a 4-3-3 with a midfield that was functional in any particular way.
We played like a double pivot. Like I don't know. It was. You're right.
We played a double pivot against Sweden because of Rose being out more than we played in the other. But again,
I'm sorry. We
without
played a 4-3-3,
Julie
but we chose to bypass it the entire time. The whole reason you play a 4-3-3 is to get numbers in the midfield.
Again, how much of that was predicated on the fact that Julie Ertz was playing center back rather than holding midfield? Because if she's the point of distribution, things are all different. Maybe. Who knows?
The style of play we did, bypass the middle, that's a 4-4-2 style of play. And we're not playing that. We're not. I'm going to go into it, but like. When you have a Abby Wambach or something like that, you play a 4-2-2 because a 4-4-2 because that's where you want to bypass the midfield and let the number 9 hold at the ball while the team moves up. You play a 4-3-3, you're committing to play the ball on the ground through the midfield. You can't do both. Like you have to pick one or the other.
Okay, without getting into the granular names discussion, right? There are some names out there that I could throw at you, and Doug McIntyre has a list, and ESPN has a list. And, some of them are even kind of off the wall. Jesse Marsh. ESPN threw Jesse Marsh on their list, Jared. Any thoughts on that one?
I think that's
right.
Phil
Laura
Neville
Harvey's
has more claim to doing that than Jesse Marsh.
Laura Harvey's name is out there. Emma Hayes' name is out there. I see a couple of those suggestions, okay? Without getting into the names, right?
Like the U.S. national team, though, do you want the old girls club? Do you want former U.S. players coming here and coaching?
Well, first of all, no, I don't know any of them are ready for that, and that's definitely a problem. I think that we don't have a generation of women who have been connected to this program who are sort of moving into those areas. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in every single facet of coaching development in this country. Okay, I'm not going to with the women's game. I don't want to act like I know the answers. But it definitely feels like the American woman is not in a place to be in line for these jobs at the moment, right? We've had Jill Ellis, right? Born in England, moved to the United States, grew up in America. We've got Laura Harvey, who's coached here for a long time, who's not American. There are other coaches who have spent time here that are now back in Europe.
I'll say there's a name that I love that's in the U.S., Casey Stoney.
Casey Stoney's out there. Okay, fine.
Nick's happy in the chat.
Interesting names, right? I'm not, and I don't even know if I want to make it about names because I had somebody suggest Randy Waldrum today to me, right? Make a very vociferous case for Randy Waldrum, who coached Nigeria at this tournament, coaches at the University of Pittsburgh, has coached in the NWSL in the past, right? So we've got, first of all, it's a male, right? And Luis says no more male coaches. Okay, that's a thing, right? Definitely a thing when it comes to the women's game. But his suggestion was that Randy Waldrum had Nigeria playing better than England, right? They outplayed England and lost that game on penalty kicks, right? That he knows the player pool, that he's got all these things, right? Made this whole argument. And I didn't say, hey, I agree with you or I don't. I mean, that's one option. And he should maybe get an interview, Randy Waldrum. But the thought that I had was, does this program, being the preeminent women's soccer program on the planet, and that's still true, even with what happened down in Australia.
Fair.
Unlike the men, who really don't have a lot of leverage to go and attract the biggest names, this is the job, right? This is the Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Manchester United job.
I think if you're an English coach, perhaps the England game is the England national team.
Sure,
the national
there
one,
are some exceptions.
I think for the rest of the world, this is. Yeah.
Okay, right. So with that being said, does Matt Crocker and U.S. Soccer need to go big name? Joe Cocker. Do they need to go big name, or should they go big name because they have that leverage, rather than kind of going, within the club of coaches in American women's soccer?
I don't think Joe Cocker's the type of guy that's just going to go for a name. We saw how. In the end of the men's game, he kind of went with the name that was already known. But
what if let's say what if Serena Wigman wins the World Cup with England, right? And she's not, she's open to the idea of taking on a new challenge. Or she makes a final and England loses, and she's out there as a possibility. Mm-hmm. Do you take a swing at her? Because she's going to cost you based on her success, based on what she did with Holland, based on what she's done with England.
You can afford to pay any coach, I think, that's in
but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's relative to the rest of the women's soccer world, but obviously not a men's salary, because for whatever reason, women's soccer coaches don't make as much as men. Let's figure that out. I'm just saying, like, there are some coaches that may be quality options who
Can I
aren't
throw a
successful
name out there that we
level.
talked about for the men's team not too long ago?
Uh-huh.
Hervé Renard.
That is also on ESPN's list, Hervé Renard. That's an
I've always
interesting
been a
one.
fan. I've been a fan since the men's side as
Okay,
well.
but
And he's got
don't-
France playing a fun game out there, and France already.
Yes.
France. This is.
I
I
know.
think France is going to age out after this window. I really think that. I think they're going to age out a little bit after this. But I think he's got them playing a good game right now.
Yeah, sure.
But he was embarrassment of
kind
riches
of
of talent as well.
No matter what his resume says, and maybe you should just be blind. It doesn't matter. Men's, women, if you're a quality coach and you want to coach the women's game and coach the U.S. women's national team, fine, you're a candidate. But I kind of resent the idea of Hervé Renard, kind of just being a tourist in women's soccer and then suddenly getting the biggest women's soccer job on the planet. I don't know if I'm a fan
you
of
still
that.
have to perform once you get there.
I know that, but
They haven't won it yet, but
I don't know. That's the weird thing, right? And I know Matt Crocker is going to look at this from a billion different facets. He's clearly that kind of guy, even if we don't agree with his decision at the end. But I don't know. Is it somebody who has has a record, a track record, has paid their dues in women's soccer? Is it somebody that has been in NWSL for a while? Because
I kind of want to see what them do what the U.S. men didn't, because the U.S. women have a different opportunity than the men, and I think that we should go with a foreign coach. I think we should go with someone that's not part of the old girls club, not someone that's classically going to do the things the U.S. women's team has always done, and challenge them to find a different style of play, challenge them to maybe look under some rocks they haven't looked before for talent, and that doesn't have any ties to a lot of the veterans.
Okay. All right, let's end that U.S. women's national team discussion. I mean, you've obviously heard a lot of breakdown of the way things went down in New Zealand and Australia. Let's talk about some U.S. men's national team players. Busy last couple of days for U.S. players making moves, Jared. I think the Tyler Adams one is probably the biggest one, but Yunus Musa is right there too with his official move to AC Milan. It's just that they have different vibes around them, and I'm curious your thought about each one of them, their fit, and how comfortable you are with where they're at.
Obviously, I think the Yunus Musa one is going to be good for all parties. I think there is some question about how does he fit into that team a little bit. Are they going to what style are they going to commit to in the midfield? But I'm not worried about Yunus Musa finding a role. You've seen him do it with the U.S. national team. He's played a number of different ways in midfield and always looked comfortable anything he's ever asked to be done. The guy is just talent, and I think that will rise to the top. Still very young and still raw, and he's going to, I think, polish up nicely at AC Milan. I feel best about that. The Tyler Adams one is tough because for Americans, looking at Chelsea in the last 18 months has been a straight dumpster fire. Now, I think Tyler Adams, what he does is more easily accessible and translates to just about any team that you play in. Every team needs a guy like Tyler Adams.
Right.
Whereas Christian Pulisic, that offensive position where you have to fail at X percentage of the time in order to have those moments where you succeed is always a tough thing to be consistent at. Tyler Adams.
It's a very,
Tyler Adams busts his ass and does the defensive work, and that translates easily to any team. Now the question is his passing and his vision at the level for a premier top 4, if Chelsea is that anymore, team in the Premier League? That's where the questions are going to come around Tyler Adams is, can he be a distributor that's at that top level?
Well,
And is he healthy?
It's on Pochettino, who apparently wanted him, right? That at least that's the word. I mean, I don't know that you hire that man. I know Chelsea's gone through some managers, and I know Todd Bowley is a very messy boss, but I don't think you hire that manager who, that is something of a coup for Chelsea to get Pochettino in, right? After everything that's happened with Potter and Lampard and what's his name? The other guy.
I'm sorry?
Stanley Tucci.
Tucci,
With that guy,
sorry.
yeah. To get Pochettino in is a bit of a coup. I don't think you go out and grab a player like Adams without Pochettino saying, yeah, I can use that guy. Now, again, doesn't mean he's going to be a starter every single week.
Well, let's not forget, Tyler Adams put Chelsea in his pocket last October when they played each other. That was one of the first big moves of Leeds season last year. The big result was when they beat Chelsea, and he put Gallagher in his place for 90 minutes. Chelsea got to see him up close and personal. Yeah.
So my point is that Pochettino now has a responsibility. He's got to figure out how to make it work, right? And you've got some players here. Enzo Fernandez, who they spent a ransom on, King's ransom on.
Chose to keep when everyone else
They've got to figure out a way to get the most out of him, right? And now there's word, and we worried a little bit, although I don't think they're necessarily 100% like for like, but we worried about Moises Caicedo landing at Chelsea, who they were chasing him, and Brighton kept saying no because they valued him higher. Now the reports are that Liverpool is very, very close. In fact, The Athletic is reporting they've reached an agreement with Liverpool. Now, I had also heard that Caicedo preferred Chelsea. I don't know why that would be. That's kind of a weird, and maybe it's a London over Liverpool thing. I don't know. But if he's willing to go to Liverpool, then that takes a piece off the board who might have taken away some of the minutes, at least in one configuration of the midfield, from Tyler Adams at Chelsea. I think
one
that's
of the things that's going to limit Tyler Adams, too, is that he's not ready to play yet. I mean, Chelsea is making this, last we had heard, I think October was his earliest date to be back. So no matter what.
Going to miss the U.S. men's national team friendlies.
No matter what, he's giving some player, a preseason and 2-month head start on securing and solidifying that role.
That's a good point.
He's going to have to somehow beat a person out for the job. Now, he probably was always going to have to do that anyway, because I don't think Chelsea's bringing him there to be a starter right off the bat. He's going to have to prove himself. But it would have been nice to get a full preseason and also to be able to feature early, because Pochettino's going to figure this out early, and he's going to be less likely to, if he gets results early, he's going to be less likely to change.
Now, if this is one of those catch-22 kind of moves, right? As an American, as a U.S. men's national team fan, like, we're still in an area, despite Christian landing at Chelsea, despite McKennie landing at Juve, name a couple of other players who have been at fairly big clubs. We're still in a place where an American being wanted and bought by a big club, and no matter what happened to Chelsea recently and where they've been and where they finished last year, they're still a big club, right? They still have ambitions. They're still going to spend tons of money chasing Champions League titles and Premier League titles and all that. And their success says they're a big club in the last 20 years. But we're still in a place where that's not a given. We shouldn't take it for granted that an American lands at a big club, and yet there is that, is this going to work? And, is this good for the national team if he doesn't play a lot or play as much as we would like him to? Would we rather him be at Bournemouth or something because, he'll play a lot more at Bournemouth? That's a weird one.
Well, let's be honest, too. Americans buy a lot of jerseys, and they have a lot of eyeballs for ratings. And it's nice to have an American on your team to get a lot of that stuff. Look at Pulisic's jersey moving in AC Milan. I'm not saying that they don't also have the skills to be there. I think Tyler Adams definitely has the skills to be there. But I think a lot of big teams like having at least one American on their team, because it brings a lot of eyeballs and it brings a lot of dollars with it.
I mean, it can be multiple things, right? But
sure, it can be both these things.
I do think that it kind of doesn't make sense. And I know $20 million is nothing for Chelsea at this point.
It's good business too. I mean, I think every team always is going to look and see what teams are going down and what's the best level of talent that was on that team that can help you out on a bargain.
Yeah.
And I think Tyler Adams definitely showed that he can play at Premier League level.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this is a reasonable chance this is going to be okay for Tyler Adams. And it's just the league and domestic cups for Chelsea.
And this from Mateo in the chat, Adams isn't competing with 7 guys for 2 spots like Pulisic was.
That's a good point. Right.
I mean, every week they were buying someone new to try to be competition for that position.
That is exactly right.
So, I think the Musa move is the the more chalk of the two. And I think Tyler Adams, over time could end up looking like the better move. But
So
I
wait.
think Musa is going to be in the short term.
Let me check with you on this. USAC Milan, is that what we go with?
USAC Milan, I like that.
Okay, I think we have to, right? I think it's just right there. It's easy. I'm not even saying that that's a creative option. It's just the option. US-AC Milan. Yunus Musa, Christian Pulisic, together at AC Milan. And, a duo at Juve for the moment with Tim Weah and Weston McKennie. Don't know what's going to happen with McKennie. The window is closed for a while.
Back and forth. They keep saying, "Oh, he's part of it," and then you just
Speaking
saw
of
them
Bournemouth,
combine.
Speaking of Bournemouth,
You just saw
I don't know.
McKennie and Weah combine in the preseason for a goal, and then all of a sudden the talk is, "Oh, we're going to keep him again." But if you're Weston McKennie, you've got to realize that you've got to perform. He's got to perform. He's in a contract year, basically. Like he's got to show that
Well, he's
not
gotta
just
get
for
on the
Juve,
field.
but for the next.
He's got to get on the field. I mean, there's a better than 50-50 chance. In fact, I might even put it 75% chance that Weston McKennie gets loaned out in January again. I think that's a very good possibility that he gets loaned out in January again, unless they find a buyer, and I don't think they're going to find a buyer. I don't know what I don't know. They might, but they'd have to take less than they paid for him. Oh, they didn't pay that much for him. I'm trying to remember what that was. But yeah, his stock is obviously not very high. I think he's got the stink of relegation on him. The stink of the Leeds experience. Another move within the Premier League, and obviously much less less high profile, lesser profile, is Matt Turner going from Arsenal to Nottingham Forest, Jared.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I mean, if there's no Dean Henderson, he'll play, I guess, right? But
what? I think it's a good move.
Okay.
Like, how is it not better to be on a team where you're potentially
you're
a
right.
starter in the Premier League
It
than
is.
the backup to Ramsdale?
It is. It's just that we are now we've got two Americans attached to clubs that are absolutely going to be relegation fodder at some point. Like they're going to be in the battle.
But you got to make your
avoid
bones
relegation.
somewhere, man. You can't just
I know.
expect Matt Turner to walk
I know,
in
I'm just
and get a starting job at
no,
Arsenal.
No. I know this is better than Arsenal. I'm not saying it's not better than Arsenal. It's definitely better than Arsenal.
If we believe in the talent of Matt Turner, you're happy with this move because his
Okay.
talent will be on display either way, whether they get relegated or not. I think we all know Matt Turner is a good goalkeeper, and against in a team like Nottingham Forest, guess what? He's going to get to do a lot of shot blocking.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he's good at. He's a shot stopper. That's one of his best characteristics. So it'll be on display. Now, whether or not he is just more valued or more rated by the team's success, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's the case, then I'm sure he probably has a relegation clause, and it'll be available at the end of the season.
I do think it's very interesting, and I'm not putting Matt Turner, and I wouldn't want to piss off Eddie in Brooklyn. I think it's interesting that Matt Turner is going to end up at the same club where Keylor Navas was on loan last year. Just as a comparison, how do they do? Obviously, there's a lot of other factors in how Forest will play and how many goals they'll concede and all that stuff. But there's that. I mentioned the other
you think
club
Nottingham
that
Forest was better than their points shown last year, though?
can't say I watched a ton of Nottingham Forest, to be honest with you. But yeah, that might be true. The club that, whatever happens to Forest, who did manage obviously to stay up last year, and I think is a reasonable shot at doing it again this year. Sheffield United is absolutely going to be on a lot of people's list to go right back down, and that's where Austin Trusty's going to play. Now, I'm thrilled about this one. This one I got no reservations about because there was no guarantee he was going to end up in a Premier League situation. It always looked like he was going to be back in the Championship somewhere. And look, I don't know about the Arsenal buying him and selling him this fast and what it means and the Kroenke connection and all that. I don't really want to worry myself about that. I'm just glad Austin Trusty's getting a chance. And
the
who knows how
dude
much
is
he'll
walking
play,
the
but-
path a guy his age should be walking. Now, granted, he is older than I thought. Isn't he like 23, 24?
I
Super
believe
young,
Austin Trusty
right?
might be 24, 25.
But the path he's walking from MLS, Arsenal loaned out, which you expect when a guy goes.
No, he turns 25 in 2 days.
Okay.
He turns 25 in 2 days.
But he's walking the path. Like, he gets the big move to Arsenal, but no one expects that to be. It's always going to be a loan move. Loans out, performs well on loan. Now he's stepping up, got a permanent move to a Premier League club, a level above where he was before. His trend is up consistently on the moves he's making in his career.
Yeah.
I think this was probably the top end of whatever move he was going to get. To be
I think
honest
that's
with
right.
you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm hoping for good things for Austin Trusty individually, depending on obviously that would be better if Sheffield United stayed up. I didn't mention that Ethan Horvath is also on the books at Nottingham Forest after Luton Town didn't execute their buy option on him when he helped them get promoted. So I don't know what the hell's going to happen with Ethan Horvath. That guy, man, he constantly catches bad beat after bad beat after bad beat. Remember when he got bumped by Simone Mignolet at Club Brugge because Mignolet his career was basically ending, and he's like, I'll go back home and play in Belgium. And he signed with Brugge. And Horvath, who had been very good and been Champions League level, played very well in the Champions League.
I was surprised Luton Town didn't keep him. I was very surprised they didn't
Wild
keep him after
stuff.
the performance he did last season.
Wild stuff, yeah. All right, people are talking about Malik Tillman. Not at Rangers, left Rangers, signed a new contract with Bayern Munich.
Yep.
But now on loan at PSV, where we will also have 2 Americans. I can't remember last time we had 2 Americans on the same team in Holland. Has it ever happened?
Man, Josie didn't have one.
DeMarcus Beasley didn't play with
have
anybody,
one
right?
other guy there for a short period of time, maybe.
At PSV?
I'm not sure.
Was it PSV? It was
PSV,
at
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Man, I can't remember.
I
Oh, you know
don't
what?
know.
I'm thinking Beasley and Reyna, but that was the Rangers.
That was Rangers. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
later. I think.
I
Yeah,
don't know if we ever have. I mean,
might be the first time ever. 2 Americans on the same Dutch team, and a good one. A team that's going to fight for a title.
surprised
and
Taylor
has,
Booth hasn't made a move this offseason.
and has Ernie Stewart leading the way. I don't know how much Malik Tillman and Ricardo Pepi comes down to Ernie Stewart being their football
Not just
director.
that, but rumors of PSV now that Ernie Stewart's also trying to bring Miles Robinson in.
Yeah, that would be interesting. He's on a free at the end of the year, right? So
I can't
he can
think of
sign
a,
a pre-contract,
I can't think of a
right?
creative name to get American or Yank into PSV.
Oh. Well, I don't know what PSV stands for, and I probably couldn't pronounce it anyway. So that's part of the problem, because PSV...
It's not there,
The
man.
PSV of the people.
PSV the people. Wow, it's better than anything I could come up with.
Somebody help me. And maybe the P
That's what the
is the
chat's
end.
for.
I know. You guys get your thinking caps on. Come up with something good for PSV, especially if Miles ends up playing there. Yeah. Okay. So what else? Any other moves of note for you that we should talk about?
Not necessarily. The other one is just like it's the non-move. The biggest non-move out there is the Florian Balogun
Yeah,
saga.
still sitting there.
And
Still sitting there.
There's still the rumors that they turned down Monaco. Monaco had an offer that they turned down.
Yeah.
If he went to Monaco, is that where you want him at?
No,
No.
I don't think
He's
so.
done the French thing, man. I think it needs to be
No.
move on to something else.
Well, it's not even that. Monaco's a weird club. I mean, they've done things in Europe. They've developed some players. Obviously, Kylian Mbappe was there, but it's just, they get 5,000 people show up to their games because it's Monaco, right? Like they're playing Baccarat. They're not watching. They're USA Eindhoven. Does that work? USA
know.
Eindhoven. You could do something with the Eindhoven, but I don't think it's USA Eindhoven. PSV. I'm not sure. Oh, that's what it stands for. Philips Sports. Not trying that last one. What's that last word?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you what that is. But yeah, I think.
And it's probably pronounced this way too. PSV. It's probably pronounced that way too.
I think for Balogun, I think that for all parties in the U.S. would be most happy if the Inter Milan thing goes through. I think it puts him on a stage that, listen, it's a Champions League level team, a Champions League finalist level team. I think they've made a few moves without Lukaku. Lukaku's big shoes to fill. Big shoes to fill.
Big shoes.
But I think I would relish the opportunity to see how he would do with it. So
By
I'm
the
really
way-
hoping that one comes through.
My man Romelu Lukaku, I just love this. Like he posted on his socials. This is always a wild thing to do. Like, I love this club. This is my club. I love these supporters. It's been so good to me.
Kiss
I mean,
the
there's
badge.
been stuff in Italy, right? And Lukaku's been, that's
Yeah.
the scene. But he loves the club. Love the club. Love Inter Milan. Thank you so much for giving me the place to play with all my stuff. And then he's like, no, you know what? Juve's got a spot. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go over to Juve now. Thanks for the time.
As a kid that grew up in the 90s, you remember when guys, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and Juve, these three
Oh my
things
God.
shall not touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Guys did not go to those other teams. And I don't remember if it was Pirlo or Zlatan.
Pirlo,
but
I mean,
yeah,
Pirlo's the famous guy,
that's
right?
But there was a time where these two things shall not touch. And it was, you were that guy for life.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I guess the only other one out there is the Sergiño Dest saga as well. Even American teams being now linked as a potential team for Sergiño Dest. I have a hard time believing there isn't a single European team that wants to take a chance on Dest.
I think it's a wage issue.
How does he stink this bad?
I think it's probably a wage issue. I think there are some numbers that are a problem there for.
So
you
think some
I didn't
team
watch.
is going
I
to
didn't watch the whole thing.
him?
Maybe. I didn't watch the whole thing. He did a sit-down interview. I don't know when he did this interview, but he did a sit-down interview with Jenny Chu, right? And it was a little. It was a little. The first thing I saw was, I don't know if it was the first question or just a clip I saw. The first thing is that Jenny asked him about his legacy, and I was like, maybe just ask him who he's going to play for this year. Like, why are we talking about the man's legacy?
And it's almost more apt to say, is your leg broke? Because they don't seem to want to play you.
Well, how's your legs? Not your legacy. How are your legs? Like, what's going on? I definitely worry about this. I think he's such a talented player, and he's obviously very good in CONCACAF situations. He's got something there that we need. But if he's not playing, then he's kind of less useful. Like, he becomes more of
He
a...
wasn't playing at the end of the season. He still looked good for the U.S. Nations League.
I know. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we're just more forgiving, and the level's more his. Maybe this is more his level at the Nations League. I don't know.
It could be his agent. It could be his attitude. I don't know. Like, there are things we don't. There's got to be something going on there.
To revisit one thing regarding McKennie, and I was trying to remember this back when we were talking about it, but I think Chiesa being back this season is something that would benefit McKennie. I watched a decent amount of Juventus games early year when Chiesa was still with the team, and I thought that he was able to combine with him and open him up into space a good amount. And I think having Chiesa back could be a thing that actually helps Weston McKennie.
Yeah, I don't think it helps Weston McKennie that he looks like a guy. He's an incredible athlete, and I do think he's got a pretty good soccer brain on him. He looks like a guy who's not always at 100%. Like he's not always. The way that Tyler works, and Tyler sometimes looks better than he plays. Sweat. Yeah, Tyler looks better than he plays because of how much he works. Even when he's not playing well, he's still everywhere. Weston doesn't do that. Weston doesn't, and it's not even that he doesn't try or he's not putting the effort in. I think he does most of the time. I think he covers a lot of ground. It's just the kind of athlete he is.
So are you white man can't jumping him? Like, you'd rather look pretty and lose than look bad and win?
I don't know. I don't think it's that necessarily. There's a reference in my head that only like two people watching this might get. The New York Mets had a player in the 80s and the 90s that never looked like he was running hard, but was a very good ball player, and his name was Kevin McReynolds, and he reminds me of that. Like, there's something about, like, he just looks casual, even if he is still very much a good player. Okay. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Is there any other business to get to? I mean, we haven't pumped we
haven't talked about Messi. We haven't talked about Neymar, but we do have a bonus show to do, so maybe a couple of those things will come up. Ooh,
you guys want some Messi talk? You want to get Messi? We'll do that in the bonus. We'll do that in the bonus. Patreon.com/thebestsoccershow for the bonus episodes. You get access to the full back catalog of the bonus shows if you sign up. And they're not time sensitive, most of them. Like, you can listen back to them and they'll still feel like they're fresh, because we're not talking about usually
just
current events.
Personal life stuff.
I don't know where Nick went. We kind of need to figure out where he's at. He's dipped
Nick
out
just
real
abandoned
fast.
The show.
Something with his kids.
I know where he's at. He's where he's always at in the show. Dude always has to poop during the show.
You're not supposed to put him on blast.
Oh, sorry. That. Bonus show. We'll find out.
By the way,
but I'm putting my money on that.
We went on 3-week vacation to my in-laws' house in Puerto Rico and potty trained.
You say you never pooped once.
Ooh.
Potty
training.
Nick just texted me. Hold on.
What is that? He had to run? What does it say? I'm pooping? Does it say I'm pooping? No, don't. What does it say? I can't.
If you're not on if you don't watch the show, you'll never know now. If you're watching the show, go to the 1 minute 8 minute mark, and you can.
Here's
see
the
what
question, right? We're not on a clock. This is not a network show. We don't have to hit a hard out.
It was great. He'll never know we did this.
Do we just hang out? and wait for him because he usually
Make it
pushes the
awkward.
button to end the show. I can
No,
do
you
it.
can push it.
I can push the button, but he's got to
We'll
like.
find out in the bonus show. We'll tease it for those of you guys on the bonus show. You can find out all about it in the bonus show tonight.
All right, patreon.com/thebestsoccershow, bonus episodes, the incredible chat. There was some stuff
Chat's
happening
been
in the
great
chat.
the last few weeks, to be
Chat's
honest
been
with you.
freaking wild, man. It's like, oh man, you guys are
where I
hilarious.
go for soccer news. I'm not even gonna lie.
Oh,
We have
my
one
God.
person. I can't remember who. God, what's the name of the guy who's putting the full list together? He made a robot that aggregates where all the American men are playing and where you can find them and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing the things that are going on in there.
Yeah, we're gonna do Nations League in the bonus show because we're well over an hour at this point, and we got to figure out if Nick's coming out of the bathroom
Nations
anytime
League.
soon. I meant Leagues Cup. I forgot what it's called because you don't care about it. Why should I care about it?
I don't
Right?
give a shit.
Your team's not in there. You're gonna
Nope.
get Neymar though. You're gonna get Neymar. You
I
would
don't care.
You think it's
They
gonna
don't
happen?
care.
No, okay. Actually, it can't happen, and we'll talk about why. At least not now. Why?
Man,
it
I can't talk about Newcastle. I can't name a player on Newcastle. Oh, Miggy. That's the only one I can name.
Miguel
on.
Almiron, yeah, he's
Yeah.
over there. They got rid of St. Maximin. He went to Saudi Arabia, right?
If y'all had paid for Pulisic, I'd probably be talking about Newcastle.
Man, I would. Here's the thing. I've been talking about this again, third, fourth time on my radio show. I want to pick a team this year in the Premier League to follow. It kicks off tomorrow. The Premier League
Oh,
starts
someone
tomorrow.
till you die, huh?
I want to be someone till I die. I do want to be someone till I die.
Yeah.
I'm ready to be. I went on this whole thing. I'm ready to fall in love, Jerry. Like
Oh.
I'm here. I'm ready to fall in love.
So who's the
Newcastle-
Sacramento FC
Hold
or
on.
Sacramento Republic of the English Premier League for you?
Well, okay. I wasn't born in England, so I can't pick it for the same reason.
Oh.
But I was going to say is, and maybe the ownership is a little bit of a issue for me. But I feel like Newcastle is a club that could capture my attention.
Oh.
But I just don't know. I gotta. Nobody's trying to sell me on Newcastle. Maybe I should. Maybe I should take a look. I mean, no American presence, right? I would love for there to be an American presence, and then I would have no issue becoming a magpie, Jared. I'm ready to become a magpie. I think.
Is that like? Never mind. Never mind. I was gonna make a dirty joke, but I'm not going to now.
Nick's back. Do you want to talk to Nick?
Yeah, on the bonus show I do.
Oh, you want to talk to him on the phone? You don't want to bring him onto the main show
Nope.
at all?
Tease,
You don't
baby.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you.
You work on the radio. You should understand a tease.
Yeah. We're going to talk Leagues Cup. We're going to talk Nicholas Soup and Sausage. And, yeah, join us on the bonus show. Talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Get to the chopper! Oh, baby!
Can I get a manager? Can I please get a manager?
Go to DEFCON 2. Oh, it's incredible!
What are we doing?
The Sausage King of Chicago.
I think I'm starting to like Cincinnati.
Okay, assholes. Sun's out, guns out.
Who asked those questions?
Duh and or hello.
Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Jay Rodius.